Rod Woodson, and if he would have had a better career, Earl Thomas.
Yeah. Mine, I also put Eric Berry, who I think is probably the most underrated safety of the last 20 years.
Yep.
And the guy who would have been on this list, Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
Sean Taylor did more with a small amount of time than I think anybody in the league history.
Ooh, he was a monster, man. He was absolutely a monster.
Also, you know how guys you can't, the Mel Blount rule, you can't hit in a Pro Bowl because of Sean Taylor because he killed that punt.
Yep. Exactly.
So now, who is your 5?
My 5 at safety is Rodney Harrison, a staple in that Patriot organization defense. Like I said with Ty Law, there's guys on that defense from Belichick's famous defense.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that's always going to be brought up. Him, Ty Law, and a few other guys that I'll probably mention later. He was a part of that. The first, I think the last 2 of the first 3 Super Bowls they won. Impact player, one of the only players to have 30 for 30, which is 30 interceptions, and I think it was 30 interceptions and 30 sacks. That's what it was. So he's one of the only players to do that. So yeah. He just made my list. Of course, being a part of a Super Bowl team multiple times and being in the hunt, I had to put him in there.
Yeah, he was my 6. Again, hard. You could flip a coin between him and, for me, my 5 is Steve Atwater. You can flip a coin. I take either one of them. It's almost like a 5A, 5B.
Yeah, right.
The only difference is I like a safety, and Rodney Harrison was a real good tackler. I like a psychopath at one of my safeties, and Atwater would try and murder you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had the ball hawking, but was known more as a hitter. I think ask guys like Jamal Adams, for example, or even Harrison Smith. I think they modeled more of their style of play after a guy like him or somebody else on my list, as opposed to I don't think Rodney Harrison specifically would resonate today. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no press pass to the NFL, but again, it's a 5A, 5B. You could give me either one. I'm happy.
Right.
Who is your 4?
My 4 is Brian Dawkins, even though it kills me to say this, but he was one of those safeties that whenever we played him twice a year,
kill you,
maybe even 3 times a year. There was times that we met in the playoffs, and he was that guy that every quarterback, Romo, any quarterback you can name from the Cowboy history had to pay attention to because he was coming.
Yeah,
he was coming. He was coming to hit hard. He was the leader of that defense. I honestly wish he was a part of that Super Bowl team because if there's anybody on that defense from the history of that team, he's one of those guys that I wish won a ring because he brought it. He brought it, and he was. I won't say he was on Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed level, but he was next in line. He was close to next in line.
Yeah,
as one of those guys.
You know how the NFL now, one of your safeties is supposed to be a ball hawk, and the other one is kind of like basically a linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dawkins,
exactly.
If Dawkins was more of a hybrid, he was a linebacker. Ask Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
But Dawkins was the Ray Lewis equivalent of the Philly defense for how many years?
Forever.
Right. My 4 is, in my opinion, the biggest psychopath, and I use that term in a good way, in NFL history. Ronnie Lott.
Okay.
Any human. Yeah, so we flip-flopped because I have Dawkins at 3.
Okay.
So Ronnie Lott, the famous story on him, because Ronnie Lott was, again, a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's anyone who's hit harder at the safety position. Maybe Jamal Adams. But aside from that, Ronnie Lott got his hand basically stuck in somebody's face mask. And as opposed to going to the sideline, he pretty much ripped the tip of his pinky off and just went back out.
Mm-hmm.
No one's doing that now.
No.
And he didn't even take a play off, didn't pull an Aaron Rodgers and get fed Vicodin like a horse. Just went back out, handled business. We'll deal with it later.
Wow.
But also anchor of that defense. It's kind of hard to argue that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And won 4 championships with it. So
right.
Definitely can argue that.
Yeah. So we know our
that
threes. This is the great debate. Because I'm pretty sure we know who's each other's 1 and 2, and I want to know who's your 2.
My 2 is your guy, Troy Polamalu.
He's my 2 too.
Oh, I'm shocked by that. I actually thought you were going to go with him at 1.
Can I tell you why?
Yes, I would love to.
Okay. Nobody loves Troy Polamalu as much as I do.
Right.
I would take him over Ed Reed 100% of the time. Here's the difference. They could do each other's skill set equivalently well, except for except for one major thing. Ed Reed could return kicks.
Mm-hmm.
Troy Polamalu was a better, I would argue, field goal blocker, but that has less value than a guy who can pick 6 and kick 6 the same team in the same game.
Yep.
That's the only reason I'm putting Ed Reed at 1. I'm a big – if these lists have shown you anything, I'm a big guy on versatility.
Mm-hmm.
You give me all-pro, guaranteed Hall of Famer like a Dion. You give me that or Charles Woodson, I'm all in.
Yep. I agree. That's the reason why I had Ed Reed ahead of him, because he can do just a little bit more, which is be on special teams and make an actual difference.
Mm-hmm.
Troy Polamalu made difference on special teams as well, which was blocking field goals, but it doesn't have the same effect as returning punts.
Right.
Exactly. And we know their history with their teams. They've won Super Bowls. They were the leader of those teams. Ed Reed had a little bit of help with Ray Lewis, and Troy did too with
James Harrison, Casey Hampton, Aaron Smith,
exactly.
Kiesel.
Mm-hmm. Those 2 guys were a part of great defenses in NFL history. So, and obviously Ed was a part of one of the greatest defenses of all time. So, yeah, the same reasons you said, those are the only reasons why I had Ed Reed ahead of Troy Polamalu. Personally, as a fan, I do like Troy Polamalu more than Ed Reed. I'm a more fan of Troy than I am Ed. But
so if we know they can do the same things.
Mm-hmm.
I saw more impressive interceptions out of Troy, and I saw harder hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, it's the 1A 1A minus.
Right. And there's going to be a lot of those guys.
Right.
It's hard to distinguish some of these guys, to put them at 1 and 2. Some of them are a quick answer. They're number 1, but some of these guys, it's like that, But moving on to the linebacker position.
Okay, this was annoying. This was so fucking annoying, because this is when I prefaced this whole list system on this episode. I mentioned D end was not a thing. The D end being a pass rusher and being a dominant one is a very new concept. So you got to understand that. You're going to hear guys on my list and be like, oh, but all they did was blitz. Yeah, but they were outside linebackers in 4-3s.
Right.
Hand in the dirt 4-3s.
Yep.
That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we modeled ours the way the NFL did it, so they kind of set the tone here. You got a problem, bring it up with them.
Yeah, exactly. So who you got at your honorable mention?
Honorable mentions, I have, and this is no particular order, Terrell Suggs, Lance Briggs, Patrick Willis, Von Miller, James Harrison, who was very hard to keep off my list, and DeMarcus Ware.
Okay. I had all those guys, but some of those guys actually were in a different category. But the only guy you didn't say that I left off, which you might actually have on your list, is Brian Urlacher.
Yeah. I mean, guy's a beast.
It was very hard to keep him off that list, too. Very hard. And the only reason why is because my guy at 5, I just couldn't ignore it.
Yeah. Who's your 5?
My 5 is Mike Singletary.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's outside of our time
barely
range.
Yeah, but 85 Bears. He
Right, exactly. You can't mention defense without mentioning the 85 Bears.
Yeah.
And the guy that ran it and was the face of that was Mike Singletary. So just alone, that's why it would have been Brian Urlacher over him. But them being both Bears, one got it done, one did it.
Yeah. I left Singletary off.
Okay.
Again, close. I have more names here, but I'm not going to give you 30 fucking people.
Right.
My 5 is Derek Brooks.
Okay.
Derek Brooks.
He's off my list.
That Tampa team, similar to the Ravens, similar to the 85 Bears, that's one of the 10 best defenses of all time. You can bring up guys like John Lynch and Rondé Barber and Warren Sapp being like the focal points. Brooks, anytime you're the quarterback of one of the 10 best defenses of all time, like a Singletary, you're going to be very close, if not find a spot on my list.
Right.
When I'm close and kind of split on a decision, I go to who would I rather have. It's hard for me to turn down Derek Brooks in any capacity.
Yeah,
Who's your 4?
My 4 is Junior Seau.
Okay.
From the Patriots. Rest in peace.
You mean the Chargers?
Chargers. Sorry. I don't know why.
He played there too, but he's a Charger.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what he did for that team, especially on defense. When you talk about the Chargers, you don't really talk about their defense. There's only a few guys that you name on their defense, and he's probably the first one. Sean, what was his name? Merriman.
Merriman. Yeah, Merriman was a good linebacker, but he ain't making the Hall of Fame.
Right, he's not going to make the Hall of Fame, but he'll be brought up if you bring up Chargers defense. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
And like you said, he started with the Chargers and then went to the Patriots and won 2 Super Bowls and was. I don't want to say he was the guy, but he definitely helped and had a great career. And if I'm not mistaken, he's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Or he is.
Exactly.
Also, unfortunately, dead. But
yeah, exactly. That's
when you watch highlights of Junior Seau, I'm not surprised he has, if not the worst case of CTE of all time, the second worst behind Aaron Hernandez, because he hit hard and not entirely with the shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. He was going head first.
Yeah, he was throwing spears.
Yeah, absolutely.
My 4 is Brian Urlacher.
Okay.
You heard on my honorable mention that Lance Briggs was on there. I don't think Lance Briggs is an elite linebacker without Urlacher being in the middle.
True.
So if you can take a cuff guy and make him even in the conversation, that speaks. Again, like I had Rondé Barber and John Lynch and a couple other players from that Bucs defense on my list here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to apply it to Urlacher. There's only one play in Urlacher's career that he didn't make, and it was at the goal line in Pittsburgh against arguably the hardest running back to tackle, aside from Barry Sanders, in history.
Yep.
So I'm not going to kill Urlacher for getting steamrolled by Jerome Bettis, because that happened to a lot of people.
No question.
But ask anyone else, Urlacher's a legend.
Yeah, no question. I mean, especially in our time when we were growing up, the two guys that we heard the most, well, not the most, but in our time was Ray Lewis and Urlacher.
Yeah.
So definitely. The reason why I left him off my list is because of
Singletary.
He Singletary got there, won a chip. So that's why he would have been 5 on my list. But no, there's no question. He definitely deserves to be on other people's list. No question.
Right. Who is your 3?
My 3 is your guy Harrison. Harrison was a problem. He's another guy that I always remember. And the reason why I can't take him off my list and why I put him in front of Urlacher is because let's be honest. I'll be honest. I wasn't rooting for the Patriots, Steelers, that Super Bowl against the Cardinals. I was going with the Cardinals. But
a lot of people wanted Larry Fitz to get his ring.
Exactly. But if there's any moment out of that Super Bowl, I mean, there's probably 2. The Holmes catch.
2 of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history were in that game, both made by Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. Holmes catch in the end, and fucking Harrison, I don't know how much he weighs, but he's a fucking big guy, and there's no reason for him to be running 101 yards to the end zone when guys are chasing you. But he did that, and that will never be forgotten. No. Never. And just, that was an amazing play, but he's one of the hardest hitting linebackers of all time.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys that just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah. Again, I've mentioned that there's guys that it's hard for me to leave off my list. The Steelers, it's actually the Steelers' birthday, for what it's worth. We've been around since 1933.
Congratulations.
For a team, I didn't do shit. But in the grand scheme of a team that has that, this isn't the Jaguars or, the fucking Panthers. When you have teams that are in the Packer, Bear, Steeler, Eagle realm, when you're the all-time sack leader, that says a lot.
Right. And he lasted long. Being that he the way he played,
yeah.
He didn't
also,
guys like that would last that long, but he lasted a long time.
Undrafted, which is another little kind of uptick for him.
Yeah.
I don't think, and especially once Debo threw on the black visor, I don't really think there's the list of people who looked more scary behind a blacked out visor than James fucking Harrison is very small.
Very small.
Yeah, and then not all.
He looks like a fucking running back, like a huge ass running back.
Yeah, he looks like a fullback. And for what it's worth, in the Mount Rush, the Steelers have obviously a very good, long defensive legacy. That's our thing.
Still Curtin.
Right. But
is that a doomsday defense? Was that you guys?
No, Steel Curtin.
Still Curtin.
Yeah, with Mean Joe, Lambert, Jack Ham, Blunt, fucking insane list. But when there's people, I'm sure most Steeler fans, if you put them because we run the 3-4, pick your 4 linebackers, James Harrison's gonna be one of them. He's gonna be in there with Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, and come on, that says a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. He was and not only that, when it seemed like I don't want to say his career got better as he aged. Maybe obviously earlier, but as towards the tail end of his career, he was still someone to be reckoned with. He wasn't the same Harrison that we were used to, but he was still guys still had to recognize like, damn, that guy still fucking hits hard. And his last years with Patriots.
Look at him. He still, like, if I go on Instagram right now, and if you don't follow James Harrison, you're fucking stupid because it's super entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
But James Harrison still, like, right now, if I, like, went on Instagram and be like, oh, he still is pushing a sled with 1,300 pounds on it, like, with relative ease, he could
physically looks like he could play today.
Yeah, easily.
Absolutely.
And for what it's worth,
he'll do damage.
Well, yeah. And then for what it's worth, the one benefit that Harrison had that I don't necessarily think is due to his hard work or anything, he was also not that tall. So it was very easy for him to get under a 6'6" left tackle.
Right.
But was strong enough where if one of them got the hands on him, he would just ragdoll them.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So real quick, my 3 is Junior Seau.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to skip over that. My 2, and again, this feels weird, is Lawrence Taylor. Here's the problem. He's not to me, he's not a linebacker. He's a pass rusher who just so happened to be in that position of go hunt.
Okay.
So technically, he's a linebacker who did D-end edge. He made that whole position possible, but I don't consider him a linebacker.
Okay.
So based on the look on your face, he's your 1, and I assume Ray Lewis is 2.
Yep.
Okay. I have them flipped. Ray Lewis is a true linebacker.
Very true.
Mainly due to position, but I don't give a fuck. Just because you have a linebacker number doesn't necessarily – your duties and your stats dictate whether or not you're a linebacker. He's a linebacker by depth chart only. He's a pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't register in my head as anything other than pass rush.
Right.
I know he can do anything. But that's what he's the most famous not defensive end probably in league history.
Yeah, absolutely. No fucking question.
Right.
Like I said, I have Ray Lewis at 2, LT at 1.
Yeah.
And I didn't break it down like you said, or if I did, then I totally understand why you actually have Ray Lewis at 1 and LT at 2. The one thing I want to say about both of them, first I'll say with Ray Lewis being at 2, one of the hardest hitting, we know all that. But to me, what made him so special was his motivational skills as well. Yeah. He brought that to the game, and that was just as intense as him playing the game. Just hearing him talk to you and motivating you, you would have thought you were already in the game, and if you weren't, you're ready to fucking run through a wall after listening to his motivational thing. One of my favorite Maddens is the one when his introduction to the game. I don't know which Madden that was. It's not too long ago. Yeah. Maybe 17, 16, something like that. But one of the greatest intros to Madden ever, just because of Ray Lewis' fucking motivational speech. I love it. I used to listen to his speeches all the time before games. And I don't play deep. And I played defense a lot. But when I did, he was the guy I listened to. And then LT, he was just a fucking nut. He was a beast that you could not contain at all.
But can we also be – we have to mention the one thing with LT that probably helped. Massive cokehead.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There was definitely – that helped him, no question. And if people want to dock him for that, I totally –
I am not at all because Ray Lewis pretty much killed the guy.
Right.
So I'm not holding criminal shit against him. I've also met LT because I used to work at the hotel that he got busted at. He still comes to that hotel all the time out in Rockland County, New York, on the Jersey border.
Wow.
Nicest fucking guy. Couldn't be nicer. Still humongous, but loves golf. His favorite golf course is right down the street from that hotel.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we can't forget that he's obviously notoriously known for breaking, what's his name, from the Redskins, his leg.
Oh, fucking Joe Theismann. Yeah.
There you go. So that's how serious he was. But yeah, that's why I have him at 1. He was just unstoppable.
Yeah. Again, if he was actually a linebacker, like in terms of like actually dropping into coverage every once in a while, sure.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. It's just Ray Lewis to me. If there's nobody else I want quarterbacking my defense more than Ray Lewis. Forget Singletary. Yep. I mean, we could have split this up into outside linebackers, edge rushers, and then middle linebackers. There's nobody in the league, I don't know ever, who's more feared than Ray Lewis.
No question. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. So now.
Yeah. Yeah, where are we
let's
at?
move on to. Huh?
Where are we at? D-end?
D-tackle.
D-tackle. Okay.
Yeah, we go D-tackle and then D.
Okay. And again, bear in mind, people, Mean Joe, Too Tall Jones, they're not on my list.
Right. Like you said, Mean Joe, he's on my honorable mention. He would be 6 if we had a 6. Yeah. We know what he did, and obviously has that name for a fucking reason.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this right now. I kept mine very recent.
Mine's is somewhat.
I got some Hall of Famers, but D-tackle, Aaron Donald is like rejuvenating the position so it gets attention again, but there was a good chunk of time where there was only like 1 or 2 that really kind of mattered, and most of the time they were just eating double teams.
Mm-hmm.
So like the guys who are doing more than beating double teams are the guys who made my list, and there wasn't a lot of guys there. The one guy who I on my honorable mention is Fletcher Cox. I think he's amazing.
Absolutely. I like that.
He's incredible. He's one of the best D-ends in the last 20 years, D-tackles in the last 20 years.
Yep.
But if you ask me, would I rather take Fletcher Cox or my 5, Haloti Ngata? I'm taking Ngata.
I like that too. He made my just miss. Joe Green just made my just miss. My number 5, for the exact reasons why you said, guys that really got noticed for being D tackles, because like you said, it wasn't a position that was really looked at. It was the D-ends, linebackers, and things like that. But this guy, he's one of those guys. I don't want to say he was the first one. He definitely wasn't one of the first, but in recent memory, he's one of those guys. And that's Vince Wilfork.
Yeah.
One of the funniest guys you'll meet, but also one of the hardest working guys you'll meet. Definitely made I know he was with the Patriots for a while. I can't remember. Was he with Tennessee before then?
Houston.
Was it Tennessee that he did that horrible? No, was that him that did that? Yeah, it was Vince Wilfork that stepped on the guy's head in Tennessee.
No, that's Albert Haynesworth.
Haynesworth.
You're talking about the guy who stepped on Gerard, your old lineman, and almost blinded him permanently.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. For some reason, I was getting mixed up.
Haynesworth is arguably the biggest bust in NFL free agent history. But yeah, he ain't on my list. I have Wilfork at 4. Here's why. No human that big can be that athletic.
Yeah.
Vince Wilfork was a freak of nature. There's no other way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's clips from NFL films where and this was before Bill Belichick had like a stick up his ass and barely spoke, but there's a clip on training camp of, you know how head coaches will be like, yo, I'll give you guys half a day tomorrow if one of the D linemen can field a punt.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick did that, and he picked Vince Wilfork, who made catching this punt look easy.
Yes, he did.
And Bill Belichick even said, I made the mistake of picking arguably our best athlete.
Yep. No question.
But in terms of also dominating the line, Wilfork was great for that. You needed two people on him.
You had to. Just size alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your three? I'm curious on this.
Four.
Or four.
My four, I actually went back and forth with this one, and I'm still back and forth with it, but I'm just going to say who I have. The last person that I actually wrote down was Jason Taylor. I'm going to go with Jason Taylor. Before it was Richard Seymour, but I got Jason Taylor, two-time defensive player, defensive lineman, or whatever you want to call it, defensive lineman of the year. Four-time All-Pro. He was, I can't think of any other Miami dominant player.
Yeah.
Besides fucking Dan Marino, and he played offense.
Yeah.
So Jason Taylor, he was one of my.
I classify Taylor in a different position.
Okay.
To me, he was more D-end outside linebacker. I have him as a D-end.
Okay.
When I think of D tackle, I don't expect a D tackle to line up. And again, it's only a freak of nature like Aaron Donald who can line up outside the guard.
Right.
Like and do that because he's quick enough. A D tackle, Vince Wilfork, is as athletic as he was. Just for example, A/B gaps, had his clear cut assignments and just dominate that middle because you know a double team's coming from one of them.
Yeah, you're right. I should have had him at D.
Yeah, it's no big deal. So just promote whoever was on your just missed.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Richard Seymour. Oh, okay. No, he was a D. Wasn't he a D as well? Yeah, I don't know what list I was looking at.
So hold on. So let me give you my three real quick. John Randall.
Okay.
Obvious, again, I'm not trying to make it look dumb, but obvious D tackle. Only lined up over the center and just blew the shit out of these guys. Hall of Famer. Was one of the best D tackles I've ever physically witnessed at not just blowing up the line, but putting immense pressure on quarterbacks from that position, which is hard. It takes, again, we know Aaron Donald can do it. We know guys like Fletcher Cox and Geno Atkins can do it. Around the league at any given time, there's no more than 4 or 5 that can actually put consistent pressure on the quarterback from the A or B gap. It's just not much of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Randall was, again, psychopath, but you need to be when you're playing that type of position and you're that explosive.
Who
did you put at 3?
For 3, I had Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
I think in the future, if he continues what he's doing, he could possibly be at number 1. If that continues, but based off of what we have right now, he's 3, and he can definitely climb that chart. Like you said, he's one of those guys that stuck out on that defense because of the position he was playing, and not only that, he was leading the league in sacks at that position, which is something we haven't seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
So, and doing it back to back.
Yeah.
You just based off of what he's done so far and what he can potentially do, I have him at 3.
Yeah. My 3. I'm sorry, my 2.
2, yeah.
Is Warren Sapp. dominant. Again, same mold as a John Randall, but big like Wilfork.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you asked John Randall and Vince Wilfork to have a child, it's Warren Sapp.
Yeah.
That's just kind of. But again, the same argument for John Lynch, Ronnie Barber, Derek Brooks. That defense, I think, revolved around every elite defense has elite nose tackles and D tackles.
Yep.
Warren Sapp was 100% that.
Yep, no question. Helped lead their team to a championship.
Yeah,
no question. Oh yeah,
yeah.
He was definitely recognized
yeah.
in his time. No question.
Who's your two?
Same, Warren Sapp.
Okay.
So we got that.
Who's your one?
My one, and I'm curious to see what your one is, but to me it was a no-brainer. Randy White. Randy White. Yeah, Randy White.
Reggie White.
Reggie White. Was he? Okay, yeah. I don't know.
You're thinking of the white D end who played for the Cowboys around like the late 70s. I forget his name. But Reggie White was a D end.
All right. So then I don't know. All right. I have Randy White. So I was correct then. I was right.
Yeah.
Let me not fuck, because I looked at both of them. I'm like, wait, why do I have two?
Yeah.
All right. So I was correct in what I was saying.
Yeah.
Randy White. The reason why I have him is because he is the only D tackle in NFL history to win the Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
That alone should definitely put you in this conversation. It's never happened before.
Mm-hmm.
Might never happen again. And like you said, this is a position where no one really gets looked at like that. It's one of the hardest positions on defense to do, because you're in between everything, and you are working through two people, sometimes three if you're that good. And he was that good to where he won Super Bowl MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that Cowboys team that he was on. Bunch of Hall of Famers, and he's that guy that won that. So to me, that stuck out like crazy. 9-time All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler. Hall of Famer. Yeah. It's hard for me to not pick him up.
I left him off because of the timeline.
Okay.
For me, number one, best D tackle I've ever seen play is Aaron Donald. It's not close. Okay. In an age that we're in now, including from when he was drafted to now, D tackles and outside linebackers get the love for being the sack guy, the disruptive force, if you will. Mm-hmm. Aaron Donald said, yeah, fuck your norms. I can do all of that and stuff the run better than anyone else on your roster, and that goes for all 32 teams. He also reset the market for D tackles.
Sure did.
Geno Atkins, Fletcher Cox could never do that. Mm-hmm. Elite quickness at coming off the ball. Elite strength, obviously, because you can't be weak and play interior D line. But you can also line up. Let's say you have a heavy package. Again, just hypothetical. Mm-hmm. I can put Aaron Donald, and I've done this in Madden, at D end. He's better than most D ends in the game by like a significant margin. Mm-hmm. So, given, again, versatility plus elite everything, you know how people say, oh, Mike Trout could retire and he would be like arguably the best center fielder of all time?
Right.
I don't think Donald is far off from, if he retired today, given what he's done in a short time frame, given X amount more years, he would be, in my opinion, up there with Amin Joe, Too Tall Jones, the Sapps, the John Randalls of the world.
Right. No question. For me, the only reason why I left off is because of the time period. He's
body work.
Been playing for it, right? Exactly. I even have it written down here that if it wasn't for that, he would be number one on my
list. Yeah, I feel like that's going to be the only knock you can have on him.
Right.
But here's the difference. Sean Taylor, and again, Sean Taylor was not exactly retired. He was retired against his will. Mm-hmm. Sean Taylor was just off my list because of the time served. But just Sean Taylor wasn't bringing home Defensive Player of the Years, wasn't leading the league in sacks at a position where that was not the expectation. Mm-hmm. Aaron Donald is taking the expectations from that position and flipping them on its head, where if depending on your scheme, you may not need a guy to push the pocket from literally up the dick of the O-line, but Donald can do it. He can bum rush the center, say fuck your double team, and push the center into you and drop you.
Right.
Right, yeah. and then line up at damn near outside linebacker the next play and do it all over again with your best left tackle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely him. To me, he reminds me of a J.J. Watt, just inside.
Yeah. Speaking of outside, all we have left here is DNs. Actual DNs.
Yep.
So I'm now, when I look at a DN, I want very little, upright stance at the line of scrimmage. I want hands in the dirt. You are a part of, ideally, a 4-3 or a good 3-4. Mm-hmm. Like that, you're coming off the line, not second level.
Yep.
Any names on your just missed we should know about?
On my just missed, because of exactly what you just said, I had because they're not always on the ground. I had Von Miller.
Yeah.
I had Bruce Smith.
Yeah.
He was hard to keep him off. Bruce Smith and DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah.
I wanted to put DeMarcus Ware on there, but he was with the Cowboys, how they switched that defense a lot.
See, this is what was so annoying. Outside linebackers and DNs do the same shit.
They do.
But
they do.
DeMarcus Ware is more of an outside linebacker, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, I will fight you on Bruce Smith. I have him at 2.
Wow. I the only reason why I didn't put him on is because of your time. But I could rearrange this right now. And
put him. Bruce Smith was a part of those Bills teams that lost how many? I think it was 3 or 4 consecutive Super Bowls. That was in the 90s.
Yeah. He was that was in the 90s. You're right.
Bruce Smith. I mean, I'm not going to completely disclose my list now, but there's a very, very small list of people I would rather have above Bruce Smith coming off my edge, especially given the era.
Yeah.
On my just missed, I put Richard Seymour. I mean, most of it's hard to find. A true D-end is someone like Jadeveon Clowney, who will contain the edge, may not be the best at getting to the quarterback, but can contain the edge and occasionally flash in coverage. He's an old school. He's a Clyde Drexler. He's in the wrong era. But the guys I have on my list could do everything that Clowney can do and also could be elite sack artists.
Yeah.
So my 5 was Jason Taylor. And again, this is more modern era. But Jason Taylor, Hall of Famer. Again, D-end outside linebacker. So, again, you can classify them as you want. I mean, yeah, Jason Taylor, for what it's worth, was really the only reason you would watch the Dolphins when he was there.
Yeah, no question.
Let's just be 100. Who else was going to draw your interest? Chad fucking Pennington? Like, no, it was him, and that's pretty much it.
Yep. That was your 5?
That's my 5.
Okay. So I tweaked it just a little bit.
Yeah.
But my 5 is still the same, and that is Dwight Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember Dwight Freeman with that Colts team and that team with Peyton Manning. Obviously, you think of the Colts, you're thinking of Peyton Manning, but when you think about that defense, Dwight Freeman and Mathis, what was his last name?
Robert Mathis.
Those were those guys on that defense that ran shit. They ran shit. They only won one. I think he was on the team. Yeah, he was on the team when they won that championship, and that was a defensive championship. Yeah. So he had a lot to do with that. Yeah. But he was a guy that was always consistent. Yeah. Always, in the Pro Bowl and things like that. I don't have his actual Pro Bowl numbers and stuff like that. Yeah. He was one of those guys that you just had to record.
Elite agility.
Mm-hmm. Fast.
With the spin move.
Longevity. Yep.
Patented spin move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's in my just missed, which was, again, hard. Mm-hmm. If the only difference is Jason Taylor is a Hall of Famer, Freeney probably will be. That's right. It's just a factor of time.
Mm-hmm.
But Freeney was funny shit to watch. My 4 is Michael Strahan.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue Strahan, and you could tell me, oh, but the defenses that beat the Pats. Yeah, no, he was the guy.
He was the guy.
Yeah, he was the guy. Again, just elite. What I want out of that D end, Michael Strahan was a do-it-all D end, but could get me sacks, and he could do it in volume. That's what I want out of a D end. He could do everything I would want. Elite.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That puts him in my list, but there's guys I would put ahead of him.
Right.
If you catch my
Fletcher, you said?
Yeah, that's my 4.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, my 4 was Michael Strahan as well.
Yeah.
For everything you said, he also broke the single season sack record.
Yep.
And was a part of the team that took down the almighty Patriots undefeated record. And he was the reason. That Giants team alone, that defense held that team down. If it wasn't for how great that defense was throughout those playoffs, let's remember this was a 9-7 team or an 8-8 team going into the playoffs, and that defense, starting with Michael Strahan, got at every quarterback, and they went up against great quarterbacks. Maybe not Alex Smith, but Rodgers, Romo was good at that time, and we were 13-3 at that time.
Yeah.
And then he went on to go and beat the fucking Patriots. He was a part of every bit of it. So,
but what's sad though is, like, remember how we said with James Harrison, like, he made one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history, and then a guy like Santonio Holmes would argue, but yeah, I won us that game because of my catch.
Yep.
Strahan had a great game, but that game will always go down for 2 shots, and it was Tyree's helmet catch and the game winner to Plexico Burress.
Right. Absolutely. Right. No question. Those are definitely the 2 key points that everyone's always going to look at.
Yeah.
But when you look at how did they get to that point, it was Michael Strahan and that defense.
Yeah. Who's your 3?
My 3 is who I just put in as Bruce Smith, being a part of that Buffalo team, 4 straight appearances to the Super Bowl, losing all 4, but he was the main guy.
Yeah.
He was that guy that everyone had to pay attention to. He was that force to be reckoned with on that Buffalo team. So you can't ignore that. There's no way you can ignore it.
Yeah. My 3 is J.J. Watt.
Okay.
J.J. Watt will be a Hall of Famer. We know that.
Yeah.
J.J. Watt, I kind of hold in the esteem that you hold LeBron as just being, like, elite, the work ethic, the charity. charity doesn't make you a better football player,
Right.
but he's elite enough where it can put him above a guy like, let's just say, a Jason Taylor.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
for what it's worth, when he's healthy, still dominant, been doing it forever.
Yeah, I mean,
he had to go on my list.
Yeah, I have him at 2.
Yeah.
He's my 2 guy. He went on a run for like 3 years where he was just running the defensive ends. There was no question that he was the best player. I think he won back-to-back Defensive Players of the Year.
Yeah,
if not, it was 2 within 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't back-to-back, it was 2 in 3 years. That's something that's really hard to do. And he was a sack leader twice. Had 20 back-to-back 20 sack seasons. That's what it was. He had back-to-back 20 sack seasons.
Yeah.
It's
very hard to do.
Very hard to do.
The only reason I put Bruce Smith ahead of J.J. Watt is durability. That's the only fucking reason.
Great point. Very great point. Yeah, I didn't even take that into. I took it into some consideration, but it could have definitely. I hear what you're saying. Without an injury, I think he would be on that level to where we're still talking about how fucking dominant he is.
Yeah.
But
so we know my 2 is Bruce. Who's your 2? And then give me your 1 after that.
Well, my 2 is J.J. Watt.
Okay, right. So we flip-flop 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your 1?
Reggie White.
Okay, so we agree on number 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Reggie White.
Yeah.
I mean, the sack record kid.
Yeah.
His numbers are ridiculous.
In the modern era, there is not the only guy, and again, the only guy you could argue with who was more disruptive than Reggie White was Lawrence Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
But again, due to position classification bullshit, Reggie White being a true DN, Taylor being an outside linebacker, that's the only reason that LT is not 1 on this list.
Right. Agreed 100%. He was working to be forced with Philadelphia of all teams.
Green Bay.
And Green Bay, that's right. And Green Bay.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to him, too.
Real quick, the only other guy I could think of who deserved honorable mention on this list and who will be a Hall of Famer. Who am I going to say?
JP? Julius Pepper?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
How many fucking years did he played? I think it was like 20 fucking years.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And was good for 19 at minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Never broke any records, but it's kind of hard to be like, when can you ever name a time where Julius Peppers wasn't a fucking animal?
Exactly.
The problem is the guys ahead of him have the accolades, the hardware. He just doesn't.
Right, exactly.
That hurts him.
Was he a part of that Super Bowl, the team that went to the Super Bowl?
That lost on the Vinatieri kick? Yeah.
Right. Oh, no. Also, he was right. See, dang. I didn't even think he went that far back. I'm talking about the recent one with Cam.
Oh.
Was he a part of that team?
No, I think he was with Green Bay.
Okay, so yeah.
Look,
I completely forgot that he was a part of the. I keep forgetting Carolina went to the Super Bowl against the Patriots back in the 2000s.
No, I gotta look this shit up. I'm looking up the years that literally on Google. The second question is: does Julius Pepper still play football?
That's how you know.
So let me see if I hope I didn't fuck this up, because I'm pretty sure if at worst, if he was in that game where Vinatieri hit the kick, then if he wasn't there, he was drafted like the year after.
Right. He was around that time for sure.
Postseason. Really wish I had looked this up earlier. because footballreference.com is a treasure trove of information, but I only know it for the baseball side.
Right.
But Peppers was a 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, and the 2002 Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh,
I guess he had to have been the year after the Vinatieri kick.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so he got drafted right after that.
But I will say this right now with full confidence. I know the Panthers don't exactly have this Mount Rushmore, but it's Peppers and Steve Smith.
Mm-hmm. No question.
That is half of their Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
And it's not even close.
No, it's not even close. Like you said, you mentioned certain teams. You know, you mentioned the Cowboys. You mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a Mount Rushmore, fucking 100 players that they can put on there. There's only certain teams that only have that one or two guys. The Carolina Panthers,
Jacksonville. It's Fred Taylor and Mark Brunell.
Exactly. We just mentioned Miami with Dan Marino and Taylor. You know.
Well, but hold on. To be fair, Miami also has the only undefeated season in NFL history.
Very true. Very true.
The Dolphins have been around long.
I bet most of us couldn't name the other players on that team.
Probably not, but they also had one of the 5 best head coaches of all time at the helm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for what it's worth, obviously newer teams are kind of at a handicap. You're not going to hear Maurice Jones-Drew being in like my top running backs. You're not going to hear Fred Taylor in that conversation. Fred Taylor was fucking awesome, but no.
Yeah, no question. No question. But yeah, I think that's everything. If you guys are listening to this, please leave your top 5 for each position. We would love to even, if you guys do that, we'll even debate it on this show or on That's Debatable, whatever. Yeah. And another thing before I forget it is Jones of the Sports is going to be around for a long time. So another 5-10 years, we'll come back to this and do it all over again. And obviously the names will be more updated and things like that. Maybe some guys get off the list. Some guys aren't on the list anymore. Yeah. We'll see. But it was great having those 2 conversations with the offense and defense, bring back some time and, you know, really show our love of the history of the sport, because a lot of these guys are in the past. Some of them are relevant now, but most of them are retired in the Hall of Famers now. So just to give a little history on what we know as fans.
If any of our listeners, and again, our listeners are not fucking idiots, if you're not familiar with a guy like, let's say, Bruce Smith or, I don't know, Steve Atwater, just go to YouTube. It's worth the watch. It really is worth the watch.
I think even every guy, even the honorable mentions guys, that if you don't know those names, look them up.
Yeah.
Because they made that honorable mention for a reason.
Right.
It was hard to keep them off. So.
But before we get out of here, let the people know what we just launched, like within the last 3 hours.
So, I know a lot of people have been reaching out to me and us at Jones of the Sports about getting merchandise and things like that without signing up for Patreon, but still trying to support. Well, now is your opportunity. We have our own website. Well, it's not our website, but we're using to promote our Jones of the Sports merchandise. We not only have just T-shirts and face masks now. We've got sweaters. We got hoodies. We got tank tops. We've got hats.
We have Android and iPhone cases.
Exactly. That was my next point. We not only have apparel, it's accessories as well. Pillows.
Do you live in Brooklyn? Are you a hipster? We have fanny packs.
Fanny packs. We have everything. If you want it, just DM me or Luke, and we will create it. Because some of the things that there's still a lot of things that I haven't even posted yet. But there's so many things that you can get Jones of the Sports tatted on to whatever, and we will get it. Won't be sent by us. They will send it to you for us faster. And a lot of these prices are discounted prices. So you're welcome.
Yeah. Now,
You're welcome.
don't get it twisted. This is for the public who want to show their support via a 1, maybe 2-time purchase.
Right.
For our Patreon people, because we know we love y'all too, if not more than the public. Me and Sean are going to have to collaborate on this, but there's going to be exclusive gear that only the Patreons will have access to. Because you're a monthly subscriber, you deserve exclusive merch.
Exactly. And that was my next point. I'm glad you said that. One of the exclusive things that will be provided for the Patreon members is not only the shirts and the hats, but you will get exclusive custom-made podcast t-shirts and hats. Whatever your favorite podcast is, we will add that to the t-shirt, the hat, whatever it is. You guys will get, like Luke said, exclusive things. That way you guys know the difference between a Patreon and a regular fan.
Yep.
But we want to support it, make sure that everybody can support, because I know there's a lot of people that want to support. So thank you guys. This is the way to do it. You can find it on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and it will be on YouTube very soon. Check it out. It's on in all those DMs, all those bios. So check it out. If you have any question, please hit me or Luke up, and we will help you as best as possible. Yeah. So again, thank you guys for joining us.
For what it's worth, the website that we hosted for the public, or the page, whatever, very easy to use. You don't really need to come at us for that. For the Patreons, you definitely hit us up. I know all y'all have us on Instagram. Get at me there if Sean, for some reason, is unavailable to take a message, an email, or a phone call.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yep. So we're excited. We got another page going with this Jones for Sports. Yeah. Thank you to everyone that supports us, especially our Patreon members. And yeah, that's it. Locker Room Sunday. Jones, Luke, we make sports better. Peace.